Welcome back to Strong Hands Reborn Dad. My name is Odie. I'm a male reborn doll collector. I talk about anything related to the reborn doll community, but I specialize in normalizing men in this space so that it's gender neutral. We want to get everyone involved who enjoys these little babies. Give us a like and a subscribe. We'd really appreciate it. We're starting a new series called Buying Your First Custom Reborn Doll. Because I've bought a custom, not this one, I'll get to her in just a second, but because I've gone through that experience, I thought I would share my tips and recommendations for buying your first custom reborn. We're going to go through all of them. It's going to be a multi-part series, so stick around. It was inspired because of Little Livie. I'm giving Little Livie away now. She's from Ashton Drake, so she's a manufactured doll, a licensed manufactured doll. That means Ashton Drake got permission from an artist to distribute this doll and do the manufacturing. I'm going to talk about the differences with a custom reborn doll, going through an artist, picking out a sculpt. It's going to be a whole multi-part series. Speaking of giving Little Livie away, you guys have until July 27th, 2026. If you know someone who would be deserving of Little Livie, this exact baby here, I'll have a link in the description to go to the website and get your nominations in before Monday, July 27th. And we're going to start reviewing the submissions immediately after with the Reborn panel. We're going to hopefully make our announcement on August 1st, but it might take us a little bit of time because we have gotten so many nominations. So we'd love to hear your story. Go to the link in the description. Nominations close on July 27th, 2026. But this video will be great well beyond that. So if you're watching after, thank you for tuning in. And we're going to get into talking about the beginning stages of deciding that you're going to get a custom reborn doll. What does it mean to have a custom reborn doll? And we're just going to go through all of that right after this. This is Sarah. She is my first custom reborn baby. I purchased her from an artist. I picked out the sculpt. I picked out the hair. I gave her instructions, which I'll get to, talking about going through the process of ordering a custom reborn doll. The first question you should ask is, should you even buy a custom reborn doll? And that largely depends on, do you know what you want? Because if you don't know exactly what you want and you tell an artist a vague idea, but you're not really sure, you don't have a good face or a reference doll, maybe hold off, because an artist is going to work so much better if they have a good idea, particularly with a custom of what you're wanting. You're purchasing the sculpt. You're going to be purchasing likely the hair. You're going to be help subsidizing some of the materials if the artist doesn't have them on hand. And also you're going to be paying for that artist's time. But you need to have a good idea of what you're actually looking for. Now, you'll notice I'm holding Sarah with the blanket. And the reason for that is Sarah's way more valuable. Sarah is a $2,000 doll, and she's heavy too. That's why I keep adjusting her. She's somewhere between 7 and 8 pounds, so holding her up exactly like this gets a little tiring. And I realize that my thing's actually really close to the microphone. Sarah is a custom. She's been custom painted, custom matting. She is a partial silicone doll, so the material affects the cost significantly. Obviously, ones even partial silicone are worth more. The artist, depending on their skill, their reputation, their notoriety, all of those things go into determining that cost aspect of it. So if you don't know what you want, or you want them to help you, which some artists will, some artists are good about giving you examples. I know the artist who made Sarah was really good about giving me some suggestions, because I was new. This was my first custom. I didn't know what to do. So I'm going to go put Sarah down because she's heavy and I need my computer because we're going to go over some notes. So I'll be right back. I'm going to go put her down for just a moment. Okay, I'm back. So yes, you need to know what you want, and then also have a good idea about the budget. I think those are the two biggest things. If you know what you want, you've got a good idea for the sculpt, the amount of money you're willing to spend. If you know those two things, you're going to be further ahead. So I knew exactly the kind of doll I wanted for Sarah to be. For me, Sarah is a placeholder. I'll briefly talk about why I actually decided to purchase a custom with Raven's blessing. It was because Raven and I have been trying for a child. I would love to have a daughter someday. I've got a son. I love him to death. I'd love to have one boy and one girl. And so I'd like to be a girl dad. I kind of had that envisioned in my mind. Raven and I have been trying for a while now. We've even looked at IVF, even different forms of adoption. So in addition to me loving collecting reborn dolls, I wanted a placeholder doll, a doll that would be really realistic, more than what you would normally find from something you've actually built. I pictured what my future daughter might look like, and that's the idea I gave to the artist. Like I said, if you know those two things, the next is the budget. And the budget and the artist go hand in hand, because up front is how much is the sculpt that you want. In my case, Sarah is from McPherson's. They are out of Canada. And that is the sculpt I chose. I had looked up the price of that sculpt. I think at the time it was like $500 just for the sculpt. So you knew you're in it for at least that. Then there's the hair. I don't remember how much I paid for the hair. I had the artist buy it because they had access to it and they liked the hair and they were going to use it in some of their other dolls too. And so I had them get the hair, but I knew that was factoring into the cost as well. And then the time, there was a lot. The artist quoted me, it could take about 100 hours of work, and that's multiple layers. So the idea of a custom is that you are not getting something that's already been made or a duplicate. The idea is that a custom is truly your own. An artist is going to make other dolls that have some similar features. With the artists that I've seen the same hair color on quite a bit of her dolls. I know that she likes that same hair color that I picked out. I don't remember her using that exact hair color until after my custom order, and now I see them on almost every other reborn that she does. I guess I made an impression. But anyway, that was a big part of it, the time and everything. And so that's kind of how we ended up at this $2,000 price. One thing that made my custom more unique is there was another artist involved that was going to do the hair rooting. So the primary artist that I had does not do hair rooting. Well, they do, but it's not their gift. So we went through another artist, which the sculpt came from Canada, had to go to Florida, Florida to Michigan, Michigan back to Florida, and then Florida to Iowa where I'm at. So that was also playing into the cost, and it's not cheap. And so that's how we ended up at $2,000 nearly. It was $1,875 with shipping. So I just round up and say 2,000, but that was a big thing. And so it took a lot of time. The other thing I would tell you as far as going back to the should you buy a custom is, do you have the time and the patience to wait for the custom? And also, are you committed to seeing this out? Getting a custom reborn is not an overnight process. It's not even close to purchasing something like off Amazon. This is an artist putting real work into it. So you need to understand that, especially if you're new to this and you've not seen how an artist goes through the process of making these dolls come to life, because they really do start out as blank sculpts. They're pale, they're lifeless, and sometimes even I think they look creepy as a blank sculpt. But then seeing how they transform and bring out features and the depth and all the little details is incredible and is mostly what I'm drawn to. Next thing I'll talk about briefly is choosing the sculpt. There's so many out there. I'm probably going to cause a little controversy when I say this next part, but most artists are not going to work on a replica. I don't know of many that do. I'm probably wrong on this. So if any artists are out there that are willing to maybe, I can't remember what it is when you take like a manufactured doll and you add to it, or if you can even, but I've always just been told that generally speaking, artists do not want to touch anything from a manufactured standpoint. Like maybe even touching up like an Ashton Drake or something like that. Some people will get a manufactured doll and it's bald and they want rooted hair. And so they'll send it off to get rooted and maybe some touch-up paints, but kind of like minor reborning maybe. But I think most artists typically stay away. McPherson's is a good example. When it comes to actually buying sculpts, I've only done it once, so I don't have a lot of great resources. I typically like McPherson's. If I'm looking for sculpts, that's usually where I'm going to. But I know that there's plenty of them out there. So have a look, and that way you can kind of get an idea. And if I think of any others that I don't think of right now, I'll be sure to put them in the comments or somewhere like that. And anyway, you guys are also, if you know some legitimate places that have sculpts, please feel free to put them in there. That's just one tiny area of this process that I am not overly familiar with. Again, because I'm not an artist. I'm not purchasing blank sculpts. I'm purchasing finished products. But anyway, okay. Now that we kind of briefly covered over the sculpt a little bit, yeah, let's talk about finding an artist. So this is probably after you've figured out your budget, you know what you want, you have an idea of time, which will get finalized when you pick on an artist. Now, I have a few people that I follow on YouTube and other social media. I follow their Facebook pages, their nursery pages. I'm on reborns.com, not an endorsement, but that's just a common place that people go to buy reborns. And yes, you can inquire about purchasing custom reborns. Artists work very differently from each other. No two artists follow the same path as far as their method and processes. So communication with the artist is really important. The most common workflow that I've seen starts out with an intro email. You email them, message them, and you inquire, hey, are you open to doing custom reborn dolls? And usually the question will become, do they have an open slot? Most professional reborn artists who do this for their living, typically, in addition to the dolls that they make to sell that aren't customs, they're their own artwork that they then put up on sites like reborns.com or their own website. They usually will have maybe 2 or 3 slots every few times a year. Usually spring, summer, winter, they'll have a few slots open each of those times that they are accepting for customs. That's mostly what I've seen. Some don't. Some are only by request. Not every artist is willing to do it, because when an artist does a custom, they are taking on an extra challenge, because it's not just their envisioning of what they want to happen. Depending on the artist, it all starts with that introduction email or introduction contact. And then from there, you two are going to communicate. I would only contact artists that you really already like their work. Make sure you've seen several different types of reborn dolls that they do. Do they do a better job in your mind with the preemies or the newborns? Or do they do a good job with toddlers or child-sized dolls? Based on what you're looking for, you may want a different artist to do that doll for you. And so really, again, knowing what you want and then finding an artist that you've seen work that looks close to what you're looking for already is key. That artist may have more notoriety than the next artist, maybe less, maybe they're newer, and that's going to influence what they charge for their labor and their time and their expertise. So that's the big variable. How much is that artist's time worth? It's subjective. You may disagree when they say it's going to be $2,500 for a partial reborn, partial silicone, or even $500, and they tell you that they're new and that they've only done it a couple times. A good artist, even new, will be honest with you up front about where they're at, and they'll let you know. I think that's good for an artist to tell, because especially for someone who's new, maybe give a chance for someone who's new to the artistic side of it, because again, you might be able to get a lower price for a custom than a really well-established artist is going to charge, particularly if someone's doing on the side. I can't speak for artists because I'm not one. I'm giving you a plausible situation that you might be in when you're communicating with different artists. And based on what you're willing to tolerate, the risks that you're willing to put in, that influences the cost of that doll as well. So now We've gotten the artist. You guys have worked out this whole thing. Next, we're going to talk about something key. We're going to move over because I want to talk about the brief that you should send. You should always send the artist a brief that gives enough detail that they have a good idea of what you're looking for. And I'm going to read you the brief to the artist that I sent her of what I was looking for. So now we're over here and we're going to go through this. I think it should be about a page long, maybe a page and a half. The better you break it down for them, the better, because they may miss a detail. So what I did at the top was made a summary, and let's read through the summary together. The sculpt that caught my eye the most was the Sarah silicone full limbs, partial silicone or full silicone. Size, I said about 20 inches or at least 20 inches, so I wanted a big baby. Gender, I was open to a boy or a girl, slight lean towards a girl. Style, asleep or slightly open. Hazel, preferred if open. So we ended up settling, as you saw with Sarah, on a sleeping baby. That's what I was looking for. The weight, true to life newborn weight, 7 to 8 pounds. Heavier feel preferred, because for me being visually impaired, the weight, that grounding feeling, I wanted that realism. So the weight was extremely important to me. Age, I wanted a 3 to 6 month look, not fresh newborn. I didn't want a preemie. I have a thing with preemies, especially reborn preemies. I can't do them because my son was a preemie, and that was a very traumatic time for Raven and I. So I don't want a preemie doll. That is one thing I am adamantly against. I can't emotionally do that. And they're beautiful dolls, not taking anything away from them, but I can't do preemies. So the arm and length, I wanted a full length. Pacifier, I wanted a real pacifier only, no magnets. I made that very clear. I don't want a magnetic pacifier, given that it was a partial silicone. I did want to be able to put a real pacifier in it. And yes, Sarah can take a real pacifier. I just don't leave her with one in for very long because I'm worried about the silicone stretching. And I certainly don't want to cause any tearing around the lips by over manipulating the lips. The silicone feel, I wanted very soft, realistic, touch focused. Again, touch focused is what I said. And because of my eyesight, I was very cognizant of this. I wanted to make sure I communicated this to the artist. The touch and the feel were the absolute number one thing. The finish should be matte powdered, no overall shine or stickiness. I learned that lesson with Evelyn. I see it with Livy. She's a great doll, but for the price that she is, knowing that I wanted something better as far as that feel, that's one thing I wanted to avoid. A couple months later now, Sarah is beautiful to hold. She's actually easier to change than I thought she would be. So I was really happy about that. The hair, I wanted rooted mauve. I wanted a darker blonde or sandy blonde, and I wanted it wispy. After this message that I sent her went out, I thought about having kind of a semi-bald baby with just a few wispy hairs. She discouraged me from that because it just wouldn't quite look right with the silicone. And also because eventually the hair does come out on a silicone over many years, hopefully. The more you kind of give them a base for that, from what I understand, the better off you're going to be long term. We ended up going with a more fuller hair, but not overdone. And I thought they did a really nice balance of how much hair and how it was layered and the directions of it. I thought that was very good. The painting style, I wanted an even skin tone, natural, not over exaggerated. I had seen with this artist a couple examples where the wrists and the fingers were a brighter red, but then the arm was much more pale and there was a distinct line on the wrist. And I saw a couple examples of that, and I did not like that at all. I wanted a much more even tone throughout without regions that were drastically different from the rest of the limb or the body. I just kind of wanted that more neutral, even skin tone. But I thought they did a really nice job because one area that did make sense to have a little bit difference was the palms. So the inside of the hands being maybe a brighter pink or reddish even, I thought was a good touch. That was just my thinking. Armatures and ligatures. With a partial, it's kind of rare-ish to get one where They're not ligatures, they're not armatures, but they have a ring on the inside of the body where it connects, and it allows the silicone to twist and rotate along this ring. It's like a plastic ring that goes in there where the tie-off point is, so that it's to the body because the body is cloth. Full body silicones, it's optional of whether or not you want to put an armature and a ligature. An armature and a ligature is a metal wire that is inserted into the silicone. Sometimes they go the full length, tip to fingertip. So the wire will go all the way through the doll, all the way out to the other finger, or just inside. Maybe they'll stop just before the finger. Some will go from the breast down the arm, so it's just in the arm, and there'll be two individual, but there won't be anything in the middle. The ligatures are similar. They go through the base of the foot up to the groin area, and then it's a wire. Think of bending a clothes hanger wire that you've stretched out, and then you bend it, and it can hold that shape. That's what a ligature and an armature is for a doll, and it allows them to be posed differently, because a full body silicone that doesn't have any of that is just a floppy doll. It's ragdolly-ish. But it can also help with realism because you get more realistic leg movements, because the knee joint will naturally bend on a silicone versus vinyl that doesn't bend. It's just vinyl, right? So keep those things in mind, and those can also affect cost too. Continuing here, hopefully this helps give you the thought that you should have when you're purchasing a custom. Now, the actual budget, I had quoted right at $18.50 was acceptable, and I told her I was open to going a little bit higher if it meant meaningful benefits. I had communicated the things that I wanted, but I was willing to go a little bit higher. I think I told her at one point I'd be willing to go up to $2,300 for a total cost, but there really wasn't anything she offered that made a price increase worth it, or anything she felt like she could do to really enhance the doll further than where she was at. She already had a base custom price of $18.50, and then it was shipping. So I paid the base of what it was for a partial silicone. It's more for full body silicones because they're more expensive and they require more painting, right? Because you got to paint the chest, the body, the back, and the shoulders, and all that. Whereas on a partial, you're only painting the limbs and the head. And then now the purpose. Here's another little bit of controversy. Some artists don't like it when you sell their dolls right away. If you buy a doll from an artist, some don't like it when you sell them, especially within the first year. They made that doll custom for you. They don't want to see you let it go. I don't know all the justifications, but I have seen YouTube videos of artists or stories about artists who got mad because they sold their doll. I made it clear to the artist that my purpose is a long-term keepsake, and I did make it clear that I was going to show this on camera, centerpiece, box opening planned. I was honest with her that I was going to be showing this, so if there was any objection to me showing the doll on camera, if they would rather me not have that association, then I wanted to discuss that right up front. If I'm being honest with you guys, that's why I haven't talked about it until now, because it's a keepsake for me and a placeholder, because I am hoping for a real child, and I hold Sarah in that way. But it's a $2,000 investment. It might as well get used on the Strong Hands Reborn Dad content as I'm growing and I'm trying to gain more audience members. So I wanted her to know that I was going to be using this to make and build content for the channel as well, but also that I intended to keep it for a long term. And I don't see myself getting rid of Sarah anytime soon. I just don't. She's not even my favorite doll, but she's the one that has the most like meaning behind it and why I purchased her. And what's crazy, one of my most favorite dolls was the one I got from Tori, actually, Tori's Reborns. And it was a Behringer baby that she did her own like half partial reborning where she reweights them. I have never, except for like once or twice, shown that doll on camera, because now it actually has some discoloration on there, kind of how vinyl can get because of ink transferring, because that is the doll that I actually use. The doll that I'm actually holding every day when I want comforting is that doll. But because it's already got blemishes on it, I don't show it on camera anymore. It's actually upstairs, because that's the one I typically go to grab most days. It's painted hair. It's a vinyl doll. The biggest thing it has going for it that I like every day is the weight and the feel. And I like the way the fingers are because I tend to fidget. That's my therapy doll. So if Tori is ever watching this and she ever might wonder why I don't ever show her doll on camera and why I'm not going to, has nothing to do with her, has nothing to do with the doll even itself. That's my personal doll. That's the one that I use for my reborn therapy most of the time. It's so important to me that I don't even keep it with the other ones. It's upstairs. Know the doll's purpose too. If you're going to purchase a custom, especially one that's been custom painted, it's probably not recommended to be your daily comfort doll unless you're okay with that investment and knowing that you have more chances for something to happen to it. You also need to know that custom dolls typically are non-refundable in 99% of the cases. So the doll you get is the doll you get. It can be fixed. The artist may offer repair services, but just know that it's that big of investment. It should be enjoyed. And it took me a little while to come to that, but it's something you should also protect too, I think, especially when you're paying $2,000, $3,000, $5,000. There's used cars that cost as much as these reborn dolls can. It's a big investment. So just know that. Something else that is really important, of course, we talked about finding the artist, and I talked about the brief. A reputable artist should be able to answer nearly any and all questions related to the process, their methodology. They should be able to give you a good time frame ahead of time about how long it's going to take. And if there's delays in the process, for instance, there was a couple weeks delay with Sarah because the artist doing the hair rooting had a major winter storm that came through. It knocked out power. She sent me pictures of a tree covering the road in front of her house or near her house where they couldn't even get out. That meant deliveries couldn't get in or out either. And because they were without power, it caused a delay. They were very open and communicative about that to me. I think the artist should have regular communications, particularly with this type of investment. Mine was a little different. Some will send progress update photos. I explicitly said I don't want to see a picture. The only picture I saw of Sarah before I got her was just a plain shot of the hair when it came in and the blank sculpt. After that, I did not see it. The rooting artist contacted me just to confirm that because it was unique. I trusted them. I wanted it to be a surprise because what this doll meant to me, it was kind of like adoption day. I wanted that experience of seeing your baby for the first time, even if it was simulated. That was important to me, and those preferences should be communicated ahead of time. Like I said, we were talking about the process of purchasing a custom. You guys can see why this is so important to do a multi-part series on. So thank you for sticking with me through all of this. Now I think we're done talking about the brief. Something else that should be talked about are the red flags, because unfortunately, there are scams out there promising reborn dolls that are custom, and on their site, they're using AI generated photos for dolls that they've done. They're not even real. Some of them, they're not legitimate, right? Or they tell you that they're going to build you a custom, but then they send you some manufactured doll and they take your money and it's a huge scam. It's happened to me, thankfully, from a manufactured doll site, not a custom, but I have heard stories. The other thing that I would always ask is if it's a custom sculpt, I would ask for pictures of the sculpt itself, blank in their own, where they show pictures that aren't touched at all. Literally, the parts are probably still in a bag. I want to see that. I want to know the process. And this goes again with artist reputation. They should be able to show their previous work or some sort of references, things like that. And again, that's where the timeline comes in handy. I think another red flag is the payment. Most people in the Reborn community will recommend that you go through PayPal because PayPal has a very generous consumer protection, particularly against fraud. I know certain credit cards have fraudulent charges, things like that, but I think it's a little harder. I think that's why most people go through PayPal because of the consumer protection stuff. eBay gets a little more sketchy. I'm not going to sit here and tell you that I've never purchased a doll from eBay because I have, and I did not get scammed. I think you just have to be careful. You have to know the seller. It goes back to the reputation. What other dolls have they done? I'm not going to sit here and tell you that eBay is all bad. I will tell you that there's known scams on eBay for sure. I think it's all in your comfort level. PayPal is a good payment method. The other red flag is if they start saying, oh, I need $50 more, I need $100 more for this. No, huge red flag. If they start asking for money or raising the prices as it goes along and not clearly identifying why the price is increasing, huge red flag. Especially if they say, I've got your doll done, but I need another $200 for shipping. No, absolutely not. Huge red flags. Money is always tough. Some artists require full payment up front. I know mine did. I paid everything up front. Some artists require a deposit. It could be any percentage amount. Some artists will allow for payment plans, but they will not ship the doll until the payment is made in full. They just give you time to pay it off over 2 or 3 months. Fewer artists are doing payment plans now because they start working on this doll that's supposed to be a custom, and then the customer ends up coming up with lots of excuses for why they're not paying, why they're not keeping their end of the payment plan. All of a sudden, this artist has this half finished or even fully finished doll, but the person's been way past the payment plan agreement, and now they have to sell this doll that's custom to that person. So I think there's fewer artists doing that. There still are some. If you have a good relationship with the artist, maybe you've purchased from them before, you're more likely to get an artist willing to do a payment plan. My personal thing is, but I'm going to say it anyway. If you have to pay for your doll on a payment plan, you probably should just wait until you have the full amount anyway. That's my take. I don't think that you should be using a payment plan to pay for a doll. I think you should have the money right up front, know what you're investing in, have a clear expectation from the artist about the cost and the delivery time. And I think that's how it should be. I don't like this idea myself of, I'll give you $100 now to get started, and then I'll pay you another $100 next month. I think you should just pay for it, or at the very least, half now, half at time when the doll is completion, but it's based on when the doll is actually completed, meaning you should have the full amount of money ready, but maybe agree to half of it. But again, every artist is different. Every artist has their own guidelines for what they're willing to work with and what they can and can't accept. So you should absolutely be having that communication with the artist. Now, one question I get is, would I buy another $2,000 doll again? Actually, I would buy a $5,000 doll. Would I buy it from the same artist? No. And it has nothing to do with the particular artist that I purchased from as far as her artistic ability. It has more to do with the fact that I'd want variety. What I've noticed from the particular artist that I purchased my custom from is a lot of her dolls, I can tell signature trademarks now of what makes her dolls in her artistic style. So the next doll, because I like variety, I don't want my dolls to look alike, I would purchase from a different artist who has a different style. I still respect that artist and I still like their work, but what I would be purchasing next would be probably a very different look, because art, I like different styles. I don't want that same similar look. That's me. Maybe you're different. There's plenty of people who buy from the same artist multiple times. Sometimes I've even heard people, they only have one artist that they buy their dolls from, and that's fine. I'm just telling you my viewpoint on what I'm looking for. Part 1. I'm excited for next week doing the giveaway announcement for Little Livie. We're hopefully doing it on August 1st. And part 2 is going to be about the waiting period. What happens after you've submitted the money and you're in the process of just waiting, or maybe getting a few updates here and there. We're going to talk about that process from the collector side, what it was like for me waiting months. I kid you not, even extra months than what I thought. That's all going to be in the next video series. It'll be a little bit before that one comes out because we've got a couple other videos that I'm going to make in between. But this series is going to be a long running series. I'm going to put it as a big YouTube playlist. So I hope you guys will stick around for that. I'm really excited to be making this series and teaching people what I've learned as a collector, and particularly even as a male reborn doll collector. I'm going to make a whole video about how I was nervous as a guy to be contacting an artist for the first time, of whether or not I would be judged or not, probably towards the end. But I'm really excited for doing this, and please guys, share these videos. The more people who get out there and actually watch these, it encourages me to keep making videos. I've noticed that the vast majority of you guys are not subscribed. I'm not seeing as many shares as I was a couple months ago, so please share them. I'd really like to get as many people involved with this and help educate and normalize this for men in the hobby. So if you could share this video, leave a comment. I try to reply to every comment I get. It's getting harder, but I try hard. So please, guys, if this video meant anything to you at all and helped you in any way, please share it. I would greatly appreciate it. Until next time, guys, remember, strength looks different here on Strong Hands, a Reborn Dad. Take care and God bless.